State law requires every city in California to maintain a general plan, a kind of long-term growth blueprint. Here with me to talk about the general plan for the city of San Bernardino is Oliver Mujica, planning. Tell me your title.
I'm Planning Division Manager. Thank you, Dave, for that introduction. And so I've been with the city for about 7 years now, and I'm happy to be here.
So talk to me about the purpose of a general plan. So it's something that every city has, but what does it do exactly?
It primarily serves as a guiding document, kind of a vision for the city, if you will. It covers a lot of areas, land uses. So where do we want our residential neighborhoods? Where do we want our commercial businesses? Where do we want our industrial businesses or our warehouses in this case? Also talks about circulation. What are the street designations? There's major highways, or streets like Waterman, Tippecanoe, and then there's the local streets. Everything has a standard to it. And from that, we build upon it. So we look at new developments, when we look at how we want to improve and infrastructure and those kinds of things. That's kind of the guiding document for our city council members and for staff when we review projects or what do we want to implement. And so we cover things like parks, our open space and those kinds of things, and our natural resources and protect those. And we also have a housing element. Part of the general plan, the state requires that there's a thing called a regional housing needs assessment. And so the state determines how many homes should be developed in every city with every 7-year period.
Do you ever find situations where the wants and needs of one constituency is up against another, residents against business? I mean, how do you manage all of those different stakeholders?
Luckily, we haven't had that which what I would call like maybe adversarial, types of roles. It's been pretty amicable in terms of the conversations. What we're trying to do, and you'll hear me say this a lot, in this conversation. It's really inspire ourselves, and not limit yourself to what you think we might attain. And we actually, part of the exercise is we have these little postcards that we had printed up, and so we've asked participants, in our workshops and things. Imagine that we're in 2050. You got this postcard. You're in San Bernardino, and you're going to send it to your Aunt Hazel or your Uncle Louie, wherever they are across the country, kind of a thing, and say, well, I'm here in San Bernardino. This is a ... place. You got to see this. You got to see that. So it's just like, what do we see? And so we want to get people and our residents to start dreaming and come up with those dreams. And so that's kind of one of the things that we're going through in the workshops as well.
How did you come to this type of work yourself? What interested you in planning as kind of a civic profession?
Okay, well, I grew up in a small town, Cudahy, in southeast Los Angeles County, small 1 square mile city, and growing up, I used to believe that all cities look like where I lived, kind of a thing. And so it wasn't until I got a little bit older and I started seeing a little bit more what was out, I started realizing that not every place looks like Cudahy. Many of the attributes similar to San Bernardino. And so I inspired it. It's like, well, I'm not a save the world kind of person, but I wanted to get into something where that interests me. That was a field of interest. And so city planning was something that I just kind of conjured up in my mind. I didn't really know what that was or what that really meant, but I wanted to be involved in cities, kind of a thing. So I kind of worked backwards. Well, if you want to do a city or work in a city, you got to know about buildings. You want to know about buildings. You have to study architecture or design and those kinds of things. So that made me pursue my degree of architecture. And then I was lucky to end up in the city of Downey as a planner way back when. And I joke and say where Reagan's first administration is how long I've been doing this. And since then I've loved it. I mean, it's a profession, my chosen profession. I love what I do. And I think San Bernardino is an ideal place if you're a planner, I will say, or a visionary, to lead in that regard. And so I'm excited to be here, having the opportunity to work on this general plan. I am towards the end of my career, so it is kind of it'll be a good legacy for me. I really feel that way.
Well, let's talk about that. Since you're working on a plan that is in effect going to outlive you, what is the vision that's kind of guiding that view over the horizon for the city?
Well, really, it's the it's in some regard it needs to be a fluid document. And so what happens in a lot of policy documents is that they become stale pretty quickly. So we have to have measures. So our general plans they have the overall in every area. I'll talk about a goal. Let's use land use as an example. So say, well, we want our land uses to be a particular way. So we have a goal, and then we have policies. Okay, what are we going to do to ensure that this happens? Do we have to adopt ordinances, or what do we do? And then we have our programs. Programs are the day-to-day items. Okay, so what do we do every day to get to accomplish our goal? When we write our staff reports, our recommendations of the Planning Commission or the City Council, one of the items that we need to address is how is this consistent with our general plan? And we actually point out, we'll recite the goal, the policy, and the program that this fits in. And so again, the fluidity of our plan allows us to do that. And so what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to take snapshots at increments and say, well, okay, so in 25, where are we at? 2030, how are we measuring? It also allows for the decision makers, our elected officials, and our appointees, our planning commissioners and such, to be able to respond to whatever needs are at that time. Technology and transportation. I mean, so now gas stations have been going up all over the place, but now we have new legislation that's going to require alternative fuel vehicles within a certain time period. And so where are those fueling stations going to be? When I have an electric vehicle, am I going to be able to just pull over where to plug in? And so we have to make provisions for that. We were talking to someone from Sacramento yesterday that was explaining to us some legislation that's going to make it easier for people or companies, I should say, that install those systems in shopping centers and those kinds of things to kind of streamline the process to do that.
Tell me about something, it's called the Active Transportation Plan. It's something that's been in the works for a couple of years, I understand?
Yes, of course. So that's a great project. So we received a grant from the Southern California Association of Governments, SCAG, as referred to. And basically there's a through the cycling community and alternative mobility groups that are out there throughout the state, they've been really pressing how do we get these trails, our bike trails, our walking trails, kind of thing. And so there is a system. You may notice trails in some of our surrounding cities, and maybe some parts within San Bernardino as well. What we're looking at is the connectivity, and so through SCAG we've been working with identifying where the thoroughfares or streets make logical locations to put the bikeways, where there are existing trails that are around us that we could connect to. Again, we've done community outreach. There's a survey that's been out there. It's like, well, okay, where are some points of interest, or how would you want to get from point A to B? What are those connections there? So that's we're wrapping that up through our public participation, just kind of our background reports, if you will. What that's going to be is like a technical document or background report, if you will, to the circulation element of the general plan. And so the circulation element will cover more than just cars. Now it's going to cover the bikes and walking trails, kind of a thing. And so the Planning Commission and City Council will be able to take a look at that report as well, and see, well, okay, yes, we do need a bike system from here to here. If you're over by Cal State, how are you going to come down here? Or if you live down here, how can you ride your bike up to school in a safe manner?
Is it difficult to adapt some of these new, like e-bikes and things, to streets where there are big trucks and cars, and you're trying to kind of add this infrastructure, if you will, on top of cities that were designed for totally different needs many decades ago?
And that's a great point. A lot of it is adaptability. The roads aren't going to have to be like they used to be. We are a traveling society, if you will, where we're reliant on our vehicles. Some lessen. It seems to be shrinking a little bit. And then how do we create those safe paths? There's different types of bike lanes, if you will. We might have noticed this, or you may not have even realized. There's some people that just ride along the curb, in the gutter area, and try to stay away from the vehicles as they go zipping by. You may have seen some where there's kind of a painted stripe. It's about 6 or 7 feet from the curb, and kind of gives you a little bit of a driving lane. You've seen others where there's actually it looks like a green stripe, right? That has a little dash. Those are designated bike lanes, and those are newer now, and so we have to make room for those.
Oliver, thank you so much for being on the program. It sounds like quality of life is very top of mind in the city, and it's great to see that. So thank you for being with us.
You're welcome. And if I may, one little plug here, we do have a website for our general plan. It's Future SB 2050.
FutureSB2050.com.
So you can go on there and it'll update you on everything that we're doing.
Thank you so much.
You are quite welcome. Have a great day.